Welcome to the Quick Bite Podcast. I'm your host, Brian Klinger. Today, I have a special guest on, Russ Richardson, the Vice President of Sales for Machine Q. Russ, it's great to see you.
Good to see you, my friend. Every time I see you.
Machine Q. That Machine Q is an interesting name.
I think of the old, remember in Wayne's World? And 3, 2.
That's the intro. And 3, 2. Hey, Machine Q, like that's an interesting name. What does Machine Q do for the listening audience? Tell them what do you guys do, and give us your background.
Yeah, so Machine Q is an enterprise IoT company. What IoT is, it's the Internet of Things. So if you very simply break that down, it's connecting things that aren't usually connected to give us real-time insights and alerts on what's going on in the world. And one of the best examples I tell people is, really big buildings, talking downtown, Philadelphia, New York City, 90 stories up, they have doors that have access to the roof. And that door should never open unless someone's out there doing maintenance or, there's a scheduled photo shoot or something on the roof. But it should always be planned. You don't just want to have like, what's the movie where they put their buddy on the roof with the mattress?
Oh, yeah. Hangover.
Yeah. You don't want any of those type situations. So you have sensors on those doors that will send an alert to the head of security if that door opens at 1 a.m. And that in itself is the Internet of Things. It's the ability to capture an alert on some random thing like a door or the temperature of a refrigerator to let you know that you might have a problem or give you an alert that's something that might impact a potential customer experience in your business.
Now, that's awesome, man. And I know one of the more visible clients of yours was, and I know this is publicly available information, so I'm not revealing any trade secrets too. I know we have a lot of restaurant brands that tune into the show, but Starbucks is one of your big clients. And maybe tell us a little bit about what you do for Starbucks.
Yeah. So they got on stage with us at the National Retail Federation a few years ago, and we talked about a big deployment. It's now at 12,000 stores in the US and Canada. And we automated their temperature compliance and monitoring process. So it used to be a manual process where throughout the day, they were spending 30 minutes per store manually tracking the temperature of every refrigerator, cooler, and walk-in across 12,000 stores. That's a lot of minutes if you do the math. And so we put sensors in there that monitor the humidity and temperature and proactively send that into the database for real-time monitoring and data and records. And completely automated that to where it didn't cut labor, right? And no one lost their job. They didn't save any money. What it did though is it reallocated labor to focus on higher value tasks like serving their customers instead of someone going around with a clipboard. And it wasn't a clipboard, it was an iPad, but the proverbial connected clipboard, if you will.
Got it. Yeah. So congratulations on all your success. Check out Machine Q. They do incredible work. Russ and his team are the real deal. I stand behind them fully. So shameless plug for you guys, but really think the world of y'all. And again, I appreciate Russ, you coming on to the podcast. I think the audience is in for a real treat because I've known Russ for many years and I've seen his consistency. And I love that, when you get to know somebody for a long period of time, you see them in moments of different environments, right? And different pressures. And Russ is always consistent. He's one of my favorite people. So let's dive in, Russ. Let's get into the mind of what makes Russ Richardson. By the way, shameless plug for Indiana Hoosiers. I believe you played some college football back in the day, right?
Yeah, I did. And we took a lot of flack this year. People were calling IU frauds and they said they didn't have a strength of schedule. And man, it felt good watching the national title game a few weeks ago, knowing that the only 2 teams that were able to beat us were still playing. The Ohio State Buckeyes and Notre Dame. And it felt really good when the University of Georgia lost by more points than we did in Notre Dame. So the SEC, their dominion is diluted. And the big conference, formerly known as the Big Ten, seems to be the upper hand. So
it sure does.
And my very close dear friend is the offensive line coach for the Bucs. So believe it or not, I do say go Bucs.
Nice. It's a different world. The NIL has really changed the landscape out there, the dominance of the SEC. It's going to be interesting to see how they respond. They're going to have to come up with more money from those collectives, I think, to compete. Didn't Ohio State spend, I forget, they spent like 20-something million or something on the team?
Well, the best I saw, though, is I don't know if you saw on Game Day where, is it Shane Gillis, the comedian, who's on there with Coach Saban, and he goes, isn't it ironic that now that everybody's allowed to officially pay the players, that the SEC isn't as good. Like, come on.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. They
Maybe
got,
they're doing that all along. So
yeah. I mean, it's leveled the playing field for sure. Well, that's awesome, man. So listen, we're going to dive in. We got 10 questions. We're going to rock them out, Russ. What's the best piece of business advice that you've ever received?
the best advice I ever received was actually at a business school. So I went to the Kelly School of Business at IU for grad school as well. And I went to the full-time program, took 2 years out of my career off. And I highly suggest that if you can swing it. It's a great experience. It's immersive. But the very first day, the dean comes in and there's 400 people in this room. And he says, hey, one important thing y'all are going to do. We did this case with him. It was really fun and interactive. He goes, just so you know, you're not going to be able to do everything that we give you. And he paused. And everybody was, he hasn't met me yet. I mean, we're talking, there's 3 people in that room that are now in the C-suite of Fortune 100 companies. Like there's a lot of brilliant people in this room, and everybody was just like, oh, you haven't seen what I can do. He goes, no. Purposefully, it's impossible for you to complete every assignment and everything that we're going to give you. We do that on purpose because it's up to you to prioritize what's most important to you. So there you are. You're used to, high performing to get into this great school. You're thinking, I'm going to get all A's. No, you're not. You're going to fail a class because there's not enough time in the day to do it. And that was a lesson he taught us, that you can't prioritize everything. You can't focus on 19 things, and so I try to keep that in mind with every team in every facet of business since grad school. Like, hey, no, if we're going to focus, we'll have 3 focus areas max, but you can't prioritize everything.
Yeah, that's sound advice. And I think that, like they say, if everything is a fire drill, nothing's a fire drill. If everything is priority, what's really the priority? I mean, that's sound practical advice there, Russ. And when you get into leadership and you're a great leader of a great organization, it's part of a very large company, but what are the qualities? You've seen a lot of leaders over the years in your career. What are the things that you look for in a leader? If you were going to hire a leader, what are those top 3 qualities that you find are really successful, or they lend towards success?
First for me would be authenticity. Be authentic. Nobody wants to follow someone that they know is a phony, or they know is just playing a role and saying things because that's what the company wants them to say. Be authentic. And that's a dangerously powerful word. I hope that people think I'm authentic. Number 2 is, this one's reaching way back, but practice what you preach. And I don't mean like you have to be able to do exactly what, the frontline employee is doing. No, if you expect them to have excellence in their performance, then they ought to be able to expect you to have excellence and hold yourself accountable. So accountability can kind of be put into that practice what you preach. I've always been a big fan. Like, you don't have to have played, in college football and be a star quarterback to be a great offensive coordinator, right? But you can still practice what you preach in terms of how you approach the game and your work ethic, and your frontline employees ought to be able to look up at you and say, yeah, that guy's, putting in the work. And then the last one is sort of a phrase. It's integrity, but I use the phrase, I had a high school football coach that wrote a book. It's called Intensity with Integrity. So as a leader, you can put your boot against someone's butt cheek and then also put your arm around them and tell them you love them. And so you can be there's a chaplain I had at college at IU. He used to call it being a dangerously good man. You can be intense, you can be aggressive, you can win, and you can be, very intense in your approach to go win, and still do it and be kind and be uplifting and have integrity along the way.
Right. Isn't there a term for that? They call it a velvet glove, or is it? It's like or a velvet pipe. That's what I was thinking of. Where you have a coach that may be hard, and I hate to use the analogy of beating, but I even saw that with Aaron when my son Aaron down at IMG, where the intensity level was unlike anything he'd ever seen in a club environment before. But at the same time, they loved on those boys hard.
Yeah.
And I mean, they were demanding. It was like the military, and it honestly shocked his system to go through it because he'd never been coached up that hard. But they were preparing these players for D1 level and professional level, and that's just the real world. And so I love that, that mindset of, hey, I can coach you up hard, but I'm also going to love you just as strong.
there's some great data back to IU, because I love IU, but Bobby Knight, famous coach, and was radical and just a wild man. When you look at the players that played for him and their success, and as men, as fathers, businessmen, and as coaches outside of college, they're wildly successful, and they love and adored him. And he was a nut, right? He was wildly intense, and but they loved him because he was prepping them for life.
That's right. That's right. No, that's great, man. How does somebody become a leader? There's young people. My son, is young. I mean, I talk to young people all the time. I talk to young entrepreneurs. They're just starting out. Some of them started companies right out of college, but they're still striving for, how do I become a leader? Like, what does that look like?
This might, you might slap me for being just too basic here, but if you want to become a leader, just start leading. And what I mean by that is you don't have to have people directly assigned under you or reporting you to be a leader. You go back to be authentic, practice what you preach, roll your sleeves up, get in there, let others see what you do and how you perform with their eyes, right? Not always with what you say, and go win. And you can influence and get people around an idea that don't report to you. I mean, how often are we having to do that in our professional lives, but even in our personal lives at home, right? You can lead without having anyone directly under you. There's actually a person, a friend of ours, her, Jennifer Osborne.
Mm-hmm.
I actually hired and promoted her in about, I don't know, 6-7 years ago. She wasn't a leader at the time. And I got some pushback from people that were like, hey, she doesn't have any direct reports. This is an important role. I'm like, yeah, but she's a great leader. Well, she doesn't have any direct reports. So I've been leading this woman for 1.5 years, and I watch her lead all the time, and people follow her. And arguably, that makes her even a better leader. Nobody is forced to report to her, and they want to follow this woman. And so my biggest advice is just start leading, and you will find yourselves in positions of leadership by default.
Yes, agreed. And shout out to Jen Osborne. Thank you for calling her out, Russ. I work with Jen every day as she leads our solution engineering team and is an invaluable partner to us. And she is one of the best leaders I've ever met. And she embodies those things that you mentioned earlier, those great qualities. And I actually plan to have her on the show. I can't wait to hear those. She's, and there's something to be said about that kind of a 360 leader. You can lead up, you can lead down, sideways, just because you don't have the title doesn't mean you can't be the leader where you are. So I actually love your answer. I think it's great. Integrating faith into your business life, that can take on forms from a religious standpoint, or from someone believing in you, or you believing in someone else, like you did in Jen. You saw Jen Osborne, you had faith in her. How does faith play a role in your life?
I'm glad you said life. You didn't say business life. The first time you said it was business life. I've tried in my lifetime to bifurcate my professional life and my personal life. And yes, there's boundaries that some things just don't bleed in, but I actually tried to go be someone I'm not in a former role, because I was a young guy. I was, I think, 29, 30 years old, and became a vice president at AT&T. Was by far the junior VP there. And so I was like, I got to make this very professional and be someone I'm not. And so I've always, and it didn't work. And about 6 months into that, I'm like, no, this isn't who I am. And went a completely different direction is how I worked with the team. I was fearful that I had to go be somebody I'm not, right? And so when you say your business life, faith is number one priority in my life. And my faith is my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ.
Amen.
I'm unapologetic about that. I don't push that on people. In I work for a large corporation, right? But I try for people to hopefully see that that's important to me in the way that I treat them and treat others, and I act and behave. I have definitely failed in that front, and like we all have. But my faith is my number one priority in my life, and I try to, especially in my business life, I try to show people that that's number one and not tell them to them. That makes sense?
It does.
Kind of that practice what you preach. Let people see, what's something different about that guy. And I try to keep that faith is the overall governing number one around my other priorities that I have.
That's awesome, man. And I too am a believer, and I know that by God's grace, none of us can stand here. None of us are worthy. And I tell people all the time. I spoke at a kickoff meeting recently for another organization, and I just said the biggest lie is that we're thinking that we're the only ones with struggles, and God doesn't expect us to be perfect. Try to come to Him, because none of us can ever be perfect. That's why we need Jesus. We've got to have Him. He paid the price we can never pay. And like you, we all have our shortcomings. I'm the same boat. You know that. But I know where your heart is, and I know how you lead well. And I love the way you do lead by that example, Russ. And I think that's one of the reasons you and I have been good friends over the years, and appreciate the way you operate and your integrity. And I know that's anchored right in faith. So that's fantastic. Who's had the greatest impact on you professionally? Is there a person you can name?
Yeah, I'll say my grandpa, Gramps, as anyone who's ever worked with or for me knows him by. He's 88 and still rocking today. I'm very blessed. All four of my grandparents are alive. My grandpa grew up one of 11 brothers and sisters on a farm in southern Indiana, and never finished high school. Went to the Army, went to Germany for 3 years, came back, came to visit his sister in Arizona. No high school education. They didn't go to school because they had to farm. So that was now that we need 11 kids to come and help us plow fields. It's amazing. A guy that's alive today with an iPhone in his hand used to plow hundreds and hundreds of acres with mules. They didn't even have a tractor. And that guy's still alive. We think about the old days. The old days, those people are still with us,
Yeah.
And, you talked about, necessity earlier. We were talking about how necessity breeds, innovation sometimes. I remember as a young kid, I was asking my grandpa, how did he know how to fix this well? And because we have a well, we live out in the country out here. And he's like, I grew up with wells my whole life. And if I didn't learn how to fix it, we didn't have water. Yeah. Sometimes you just have to learn. But his lack of education, if you met him and saw his success in his life and everything he's done to help others and his success in his business life, you would have never known it.
Right.
We moved out to Arizona to visit his sister, and he got a job with my grandma. They were newlyweds, had like $200 to their name, and he got a job at Arizona Couch, and he learned how to make furniture. And next thing you know, he was a manager, and then the foreman, and then in the 1960s, he and my grandma bought that company out of bankruptcy for $8,000. And Richardson Furniture is still going today. My uncle and aunt now own and operate it, but my grandpa started that. And it's, there's not many businesses in the furniture industry in the United States that are still rocking. And he's just an unbelievably wise man. And he lives 1 mile from me. I see him every day. And he's they don't make them like him anymore. And every day I find myself in business settings all over the world now. We're doing a lot internationally with my company. And I'm still reminded of all these lessons that he taught me. Just a country boy with a 6th grade education, and lied about his age to go to the Army. And here we are. And I'm leading big teams and big meetings and doing big deals. And the principles of which I'm running and leading my teams and doing business are from the man that used to plow a field with mules.
No, that's amazing, man. I hope that you're able to capture some of those stories. I'm sure he has, he's obviously passed down a great legacy and lived it out by example, and you were able to model those things. But, I was talking to someone just today about that, like to really go in, and there's so many great resources now that we have at our disposal to capture those stories. Can you imagine the wealth of knowledge? And our friend Brad Martin over at Chick-fil-A, he got on stage with us one time at an NRF show, and he talked about his grandmother. And you triggered the thought. He said the same thing about his grandmother, how, in this case, it was grandmother, not his grandfather, but she lived through this generation where, to see electric cars and to see an iPad and an iPhone and all the digital world that they, have seen us develop. And then to hear the changes in life and just to capture those stories and those moments, are precious, because you're right. They do not make people like that anymore. They just
Let me
don't.
tell you a cool story about him too. This really brings it home. So I was at Arizona State University watching my cousin walk across the stage, get his college degree, and that made I think it was number 14 out of 15 grandkids to graduate with a college degree. And the 15th one is just the youngest. He's still in school. And somebody tapped him and said, and only one of his three boys went to school. The other two did not. And of course, nobody before that had ever gone to college. No one. So my uncle was the only one up till the 15th, the first grandkid. And the guy said, "Yeah, you must be really proud of all these grandkids. All of them, I know you're only one of your boys went to college." And he goes, uh-huh. He goes, "What I'm really proud of," he goes, "I have 15 grandkids with college degrees, and not one of them has any debt for college. And the reason that is because these three boys that his sons, who he taught how to work, right, and how to use their head, even though they didn't have a college degree, busted their you-know-whats to take care of their kids and give them the opportunities that they didn't have, but then it just keeps building, right?" And I think that's my biggest challenge. I think a lot of us is like people that have been through these generational like level ups is how do you still come back to the core of teaching toughness and teaching innovation from the necessity that my grandpa had because the damn well broke, right? These kids will never know how to fix a well because just turn the faucet on and it's always been hot too, right? And so I thought that was a really powerful thing. We were all kind of like, wow, grandpa dropping wisdom on us yet again, but and that's the type of the wisdom. I always pride myself. I have a white collar pedigree with a blue collar on the inside. And that's my grandpa, right? My grandpa is polished as you want him to be and has been very successful, but it's rooted in hard work and grit and faith.
Yeah, man, I tell you, I can relate to that so much. And my father, I never knew either one of my granddads. They had both passed away before, I came along. But my dad, he was a welder at a gas company and from Memphis Light Gas and Water, retired from there. Watched him, in a ditch and in the hot, in the cold, the snow, just hard worker. Matter of fact, he didn't get air conditioning, Russ, in his truck. He drove a little Toyota pickup truck with the windows down in the summer and windows up in the winter, but never had air conditioning until he retired because he said it was going to make him soft. So he didn't have air conditioning and would not get it. He was like, "It's going to make me soft, so I'm not going to get it." So they don't make them like that anymore, man. That's awesome.
But some of them are still here, though. That's why. That's
right. That's right. So what's a company that you admire? I know there's so many great ones out there, but if you had to pick on one, who would you like to spotlight?
I have to stick. There's a lot of cool. I'm going to stick with our quick bikers theme, right, in the restaurant space. And a lot of people I've listened to many of these that talk about Chick-fil-A because they're amazing. So I'm going to stay in that track. I'm going to pick another one. It's In-N-Out.
Yeah,
cool of a company. Like, hey man, we're going to build a business. We're going to sell cheeseburgers, shakes, and fries. We're going to do this for like 60, 70 years, and we're going to continue to grow. And that's all we're going to sell. We're not going to add any chicken. We're going to do anything different. And again, we're going to be unapologetic about our faith in Jesus Christ. Do you have to be a Christian to work here? Nope. Mm-hmm. Are we going to welcome anyone and everyone to work here? Yep. And are we going to treat them like a Christian should treat them? Yep. And they're fantastic. And their burgers are amazing. And yeah, they have they've got some cultic, menu off the menu stuff, which is the secret hidden menu. That's fun. But I'm a simple dude, right? I'm the grandson of George Gramps. And I think it's neat when people can grow a massively successful brand in business and keep it so simple, but they execute and they are just very disciplined about how they do what they do, and they do it really freaking well. So I've always been attracted to companies like that. And I understand it too. Some of this new technology that you and I are dabbling in now. So I'm Googling on the side of what exactly are we talking about here? Especially some of the AI technologies that are like, it's like, just to say AI and Gen AI, no, you got to start knowing your stuff. Like it's accelerating quick, right? I think it's
It is.
accelerating faster than anybody else can keep up with, to be honest.
It really is. And I love In and Out too. I'm a huge fan. Matter of fact, they're coming to Nashville. They just broke ground on their new restaurant and they're opening up, I guess, a second headquarters there. They're expanding it into Tennessee. And so super excited to be able to have an In and Out burger within a 2-hour drive. I'm living here in Chattanooga now. So super pumped. And every time I've been to California, that's like first thing or Vegas, you go to In and Out burgers.
So I live in Laveen, Arizona. And when I was a kid, man, it was 30 minutes to groceries and dairy farms all around me. We still live on 2 or 3 acres here and have goats and chickens. And I'm a country boy to the core, but all the farmers sold. They're like, I'm out. They were getting 200-300 grand an acre, and all the dairy farmers, same thing. And so here I am in a place that I grew up in that used to drive 30 minutes to get groceries. And now you're 5.5-minute drive from In and Out. We just got one about 2 months ago. So
that's awesome. That's awesome.
I like the traffic, but I do like the cheeseburgers.
Yes. Now I'm a huge fan of them, man. And you're right about their core. At their core, and this is the common theme between a Chick-fil-A and an In and Out burger, is the culture. They know their culture. They're welcoming of all. You don't have to be a Christian, like you said, to work there. They treat everyone with love, honor, dignity, and respect. And those values permeate everything they do. And it shows up in how they serve people. And to your point, they found something to do really, really well, and they just stuck to it. Can't beat it. So let's dig into something that I know is very personal, very near and dear to your heart, and I think is going to be exceptionally inspiring to people. And let's talk about adversity. That journey of life, and everyone experiences different levels of adversity. Tell me a little bit about adversity and how it's shaped you and your family.
Yeah. So when I talk about adversity, I got baptized in it over the last 20 months. So if you follow me on LinkedIn, again, I don't have a lot of walls up about my personal and professional life. I had a leader one time that said, "Hey, remember, this is not who you are. It's what you do. What you do is reflected, or who you are is reflected in what you do." And so I can't keep it out. I physically tried to bifurcate my professional and I can't do it. You're going to hear about Gramps. You're going to hear about Dolly. And Dolly is my 4th baby. So my wife and I have 4 children. Violet is 9. Georgie is 7. Daphne, aka Jufa we call her, is 4. And then Dolly is 20 months old. And 20 months ago, we went to the hospital. We were pros. All right. We know what we're doing now. It's amazing. I talk about my wisdom now with some of my leaders. A mentor of mine, a guy who Peraza Gawadia. When he hired me, I was 1KR, one kid Russ. And since I've been in this role, I've had 3 more kids. So now I'm 4 kid Russ, and I got a little gray hair. Still got hair, but it's gray. And you go there with a little more wisdom the first time around when you're having a kid. You remember that, right? You get it. Now on the 4th one, you're pretty good at it. And so everything went great. I actually surprisingly had this overwhelming, and I told my wife, looking back, it's like the other 3 kids, I was emotional because I'm an emotional dude. But I was emotional, but it actually, I had to sit down, and I had nurses like, "Are you okay?" And they're like, "What's wrong with you? This is your 4th kid." And I'm like, "I don't know." I swear I felt like it was God, saying, "Hey, you don't know what's about to come, but it's coming." Right. So we're in the room and everything's great. And we actually, we have a really nice hospital in Scottsdale. So we chose to stay an extra night because just quiet. It's just the 3 of us, and kind of enjoy that because it's like the last night ever of just the 3 of us because we were bringing her back to chaos at our house. And we're all checked out the next day. I got the truck loaded. The last bag sitting there, hat on, ready to roll. Lauren's holding the baby. And the last check, you got to click through and watch the Don't Shake a Baby video and all that. It's important because it's a thing. But the last check, and this was at an awkward time of day on a Sunday, Dr. Perez, God bless him, He comes in and he's doing the final, okay, is everything good? One last listen. And he takes his stethoscope and he goes, listen, I know you guys are pros, but I just heard like this slightest weird murmur and I keep hearing it and I've got to get it looked at. I just won't be able to sleep if I don't. So I'm like, gosh, dang it. I want to go home and get this baby home and get her home, Lauren home. So they bring in the EKG. And so, we've both been in sales our whole life. We're good at reading people, right? And creating connections and relationships. And I'm watching this cat do the EKG and the scan, and he starts making small talk with me. And this dude is awkward as all get out. He's not a small talk type. So me reading it, I'm like, we have a problem. Lauren goes, why? Because he left the room. I go, that guy doesn't want to talk to us. That's not his thing. He likes his job, but he's trying to because something's happening right now. He was clicking away like a madman. Yeah, how about you're a Hoosier fan at IU hat. Mm-hmm. Next thing I know, 8 or 9 people come running in, grab our baby, rush her to the NICU. Lauren and I are like, what the hell's going on? Very long story short. She had a coarctation of the aorta, which is basically the big giant valve in your heart. It's supposed to be the big one. It was a tiny little one. And there was no, when you cut the umbilical cord and you start breathing, you basically are activating your lungs as a baby, right? And now you are oxygenating your own blood, where it used to be mom doing it, right? Through the connection. And she wasn't getting oxygen to her body. And she was living and was alive because when you are inside of your mama, there's a little tiny port that is open that allows mom's oxygenated oxygen to be getting into your system. And over a few days after you begin doing breathing on your own, that little port closes up. Well, what was happening is that port was closing and we would have never known it. And we most likely would have woken up the next day with a dead baby. And the blessing is not only did she have this coarctation, she had a big hole in her heart, like a big hole. And her heart's only that big, right? Little baby. And she was little. She was only like 7 pounds, but for our kids, that's little. They're only like 9, 10, 11 pounders. And if it weren't for the hole, he would have never heard it because the coarc doesn't make a sound. So it was a blessing that there was 2 issues because the second one they could fix, pretty easy fix. It's surgery, but it's pretty easy. But the coarc one, it would have been a bad deal. So for the next 31 days, we were in the hospital. On the 9th day, they cut her from here to here. And doctor went in there, little bitty tiny heart, and did a massive miracle type surgery that there's a big risk, like coin flip on that one, especially at her size. They waited 9 days because they had to get her big enough. There's these moments throughout this adversity that I vividly remember, and makes me get hot and emotional. I had to, as dad, mom was chilling and we're in the room and the surgeon comes and we look at this 3D rendering of her heart, which was pretty incredible, the technologies they made it. He had me sign 3 things. One, he was having me sign that I give him permission to cut my baby open. Number 2 was I'm giving him permission to put her on bypass, which is a big risk for a baby that small. And then the third thing was, would you let us take her organs? Right? So I'm signing away. And I remember like, holy cow, we walked her down there. She did the surgery and it's an overwhelming feeling. And like you're going to hear the story's a good story. But it's an overwhelming feeling. And I don't know if that'll ever go away, but I'm glad because it fuels me. But them taking her, and you're like, okay. And then you get these updates. If you ever had surgery recently, you're in the waiting room and there's updates and they're so delayed, right? So it's a 6-hour surgery process. It was intense and she survived. And they brought her, they told us she made it, and it was a successful surgery, and long 6 hours, my friend. So now though, and this is where the adversity, to answer your question, this is where it really started and it changed my life. So we get into recovery now. And what I didn't know is that when you go on bypass and they cut you open, every cell in your body swells up. Lips, cheeks. I mean, you get really, really puffy. And when you're a little baby, you don't, like you and I, we're big boys. We got a little extra room, right? So they can close us up and the swelling, like, we'll be all right. Well, if you close up a baby after something like that, there's not enough room there, and the blood pressure inside, it's a bad issue. So when they actually bring her back into the room, it has this clear covering on her. And I'll send you a picture, and I don't mind sharing it because it's an amazing story. There's like 70 wires and cords plugged into this little baby. She was pale as can be, but she was breathing, and I could physically see her little heart pumping. And that was when, I might have it. I got a picture somewhere. I'm not getting naked. Here's my picture. See these 31 days? So there's exactly 31 marks here. And so this was I had a piece of paper. You ever read the book Good to Great?
Oh yeah, of course.
So there's a whole chapter on there that a lot of times gets overlooked. And it's like when they're on the island, right? Jingle Stockdale. And it was the optimists died, right? Because they never lost hope or faith that they were going to go home, but they said, hey, we're going to get tortured today though. Let's face the facts, like the truth of what's happening. Right. And so for us, it was like, hey, I told my wife, and it's funny because she was good up through the surgery. This is going to happen. And I was struggling. But then when they brought her back, I was like, let's go. Day 1, survive the surgery. Day 2, make it through the night, the first 24 hours. Day 3 was got to start getting the swelling off of her because she was all puffed up. And that's my athletics mindset. And I was like, hey, she's going to be all right, but we're focused on a daily goal, a daily task. And so I made this little paper and I called it Days on the Island. Because, here I am, I'm in this room. And for 31 days, my wife and I, one of us was with her the whole time. And I did all the nights because we talk about a tough person. My wife, through all this, 18 months with 3 other children at home, pumped the whole time. You know how many days of that is? It's about managing all this and and you'll hear more about this. I'm trying to tell a long story short. It's still long, so forgive me. But
no, take all the time. Take all the time.
So we're keeping track of this, and it was Days on the Island, and the head cardiologist comes in, and I don't know if you've been in a hospital setting like this. There's like 15 cronies behind him, right? And they come into the room, and he goes, "Oh, that's cool." It's right above her thing, and he goes, "What is that? Days till you go home?" And I said, "Nope, that's days that we woke up alive." And so my thing was, I did all the nights so that Lauren could get some rest and pumping and take care of our other children, and so I would wake up. I'd get a Starbucks and come in and pray with my baby and put a mark. And so we kept that, right? On day 31, like exactly 1 month, we go home. And there's some great photos too. If you go into my LinkedIn, you'll see kind of her journey. And so we go home, and I was actually just sitting in my office and I look and I'm like, oh, cool. It looks like a scar, on the when you flipped the days that I counted upside down. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to get a matching scar because she's got a scar this long, And so I just took it, and I have one other tattoo, my wife's initial on my finger. And that's it though. And I said, I'm going to get that right there. And it is the best reminder to me of that. And what we found out, Brian, is that the reason her heart had this defect is that she has a extremely ultra rare genetic condition called Barrett's-Winter syndrome. And there's less than 300 cases in the world. And it's a protein gene mutation, and it has the most wildly sporadic impact on children from a cognitive and motor development. A lot of times kids look like they have Down syndrome. It's just a unique look. And what I've actually found in things like that is when you see someone that has Down syndrome, you can almost just tell by looking at them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's just very slight variations in spacing of eyes and ears, and that gives someone that look. My daughter Dolly has some of that, and so we often get recognized of that. And then when people find out she doesn't, they're so apologetic, and it's like, no, it's okay. Thank you for recognizing that she's different. But there's this amazing, like, some social media drives me crazy and I hate parts of it, but I also love it, right? Because we have this connection and this community of families that have children with Barrett's or Winter all over the world. And I mean, all over the world. And some kids are non-mobile, some kids are nonverbal. A lot of kids are deaf. My daughter's deaf in her left ear. She, last month started walking with an assisted walking device. And last Saturday really was the day she just said, screw this. And she's walking. She's saying some words, and she's very much there. It's such a blessing. But I'll tell you, if I could wrap that whole story, there's a few things I've learned about adversity, and the top things I've learned in this journey with her. And the journey's not over, right? There's so much to come, and in a weird way, it actually is inspiring and exciting, knowing that we don't know what's coming, but it has Dolly involved, and that's fun. But I'll tell you, the first thing is around, you said something like this a minute ago, around every corner in the Phoenix Children's Hospital, there's a dad that has it worse than you.
Mm-hmm.
Every corner. My daughter, I walk into a room and she lights up like a Christmas tree because daddy's there and loves me to death and knows who I am. And then there's a lot of dads I met at that children's hospital. Their kid will never know that they're sitting there. They're in a state that they just are not reactive at all. And that one gets me bad, man, to the core. I've said this all through this whole thing. I don't care if she ever takes a step. And then the fact that she knows who I am, that was pretty powerful. And that she could smile and she recognized this and smile. She does. In fact, that's all she does. The biggest thing that she's done to change my life is, and this is my analogy. Okay. My grandpa is the guy I talked about. We all have someone like that. Brad Martin at Chick-fil-A. We all have that person that's just this amazing, wise person that has a different perspective on life. And you know why they have that perspective? Because they're at the end of it.
Mm.
Gramps wasn't Gramps when he was 30.
Right.
I heard the stories and things he learned about when he was 30, but he was telling to me as a 75-year-old. So we get that perspective. In my analogy, when I tell people that I have a special needs daughter and they say, I'm so sorry. You say, oh no. Because do you know what you get when you get a special needs baby? You get a set of glasses that when you put them on, it gives you old man perspective.
Mm.
And no matter what comes at me every day or what's around any corner, I start my day looking at that as I'm brushing my teeth, and just like, it almost makes it funny. Like there's nothing that can come at me today that is not going to make me smile like Dolly, because she smiles all the time, regardless of the circumstances. And she's just a joy, and it's just changed our life in ways that I can't even imagine. And I wouldn't give her and this experience away for anything.
And Russ, I'm looking as you were telling that story. So I've had on a loop our entire time talking the post you made on LinkedIn about a week ago of Dolly with the walker. And then she's reaching up. Who is she reaching up to, you or your wife? I don't know who she is. So that reaching up and the joy and the expression, and you're right. I mean, just the smile on her face just melts you, you know?
There's one on there too, Brian, that where I said, I want to show everybody what it's like having a special needs daughter. My hair's like this. I didn't sleep much. And I walk in and I showed what she's like when she wakes up. And I encourage people to go watch that, because it just melts your heart. Like, oh my gosh, like no matter what is happening today, she's just going to smile about it, you know? Mm-hmm. And she's got it figured out. We don't. And I am emphatically confident that that is the truth. It's like, how many children that have Down syndromes Down syndrome or special needs, have you ever met that aren't smiling their ass off?
Yeah, exactly.
And they're the different ones? No.
Right.
They got it figured out.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, man. That's first of all, thank you, Russ, for sharing that story. And I would encourage everybody to go check out Russ Richardson on LinkedIn. Follow Dolly's journey there. I think that I mean, just the pictures and the videos and your openness to sharing that and bringing us into that, to your table, and to see her development and the inspiration that I think others will find. And certainly, God has a beautiful plan for her life and for your life and for your other children and your wife. And man, there's such a theme this week. I've done several podcast recordings this week, and I swear Romans 8:28 keeps showing up. And Romans 8:28 says that, and we know God works all things together for good to those who love the Lord and are called according to his purpose. And the last time I checked that verse, it still says the word all. All
Yeah.
is the key word. People focus on the good part, and yes, that's good, but it means in all things. And you said like she's got it figured out, and you're right. We oftentimes as the adults, we get so sidetracked and twisted over things that when you look back later, you go, "Why did I let that get me sideways?" And then God has given this amazing gift to your family and Dolly to give you another reminder of his glory, that we're all made in the image of God, that every life matters. And she's got an incredible story to tell. And she's already telling it. She's
Yeah.
already telling it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I use my job now. Obviously I work for a big company but to deliver results, but the joy that I get now is telling her story. And more importantly, the things that I've learned from this little 20-month-old to others, because you did that. And I wish I could tell you the people that I've cried with at an airport and that just needed it. And they need, like, I needed to hear that, and I'm like, yeah. And it's like, that's my job to do now, is to go tell her story as much as possible. So
Yeah. No, I'll tell you, I'm inspired, man, and bringing me to tears. And for those, I'm encourage people, if you're listening to the podcast on Spotify or iTunes, go over to YouTube and watch the video. And I'll cut this up into some reels too. That you can see the love in your heart for her, and it shows through your eyes, Russ. And
yeah.
man, that connection as a father is so powerful.
Oh, yeah. Brian, it's impacted so I can't explain the impact. It's made me a better leader. Yeah, ask my team. They had these are my babies, right? That's the Dolly bear. And they saw me leave to go have a baby, and I was like, I'll be back in a few weeks. 6 months later, I came back, and there's a gentleman I work with, Chef Tom. Chef Tom. He says, "Man, you came back a different man." And I'm like, because I am. And it's changed my marriage. And I'll tell you this, you talked about faith. There's this really crazy stat out there about when parents go through traumatic things with children, or even more so the loss of a child, it has like polarizing effects, either one way or the other, about your relationship. And I will tell you, Lauren and I have talked about this a lot. If we didn't have faith as the glue and the center of our marriage, I can see where this type of a thing could drive a wedge, because you're like, you don't know what I'm going through. Well, like, no, I do. I'm the dad, or you don't know what I'm going through. But that kept us centered, and we came out of this much, much stronger. And, my children are little kids still, and my son is a wild, wild man and tough as nails. And he has this little softness that he has developed, an empathy. And I'll go in the living room and he'll just be petting her little hand, and he doesn't do that for anybody. But he's seen. And you know what's interesting is he met a little boy on a playground that had Downs, and I was talking to him about it later. I said, "Hey, that was great of you to play with that little guy." I go, "You notice anything different about him?" And he's like, "Yeah." I was like, "What'd you notice?" He's like, "He's just different." And I go, "Like how?" He goes, "Like Dolly." we've never talked out loud to our children about Dolly being different, right? They just know. And it has changed their life too. And we think about life differently. I don't know how independent she'll ever be. And I just like, look at these 3 siblings that when I'm gone, and it makes you look everything through those new goggles, man.
Right.
And shame on me if and Lauren, I didn't even talk about her. I can't, because that woman's amazing. And Dolly has like 6 appointments a week, and she gets her to everything. And she's like, oh, she's walking. I'm like, no, y'all are walking. Like, you're the one that helped her on this, right? It's relentless effort, and still amazing mom to the other 3 too. But absolutely the biggest blessing that's ever happened to me. And I wouldn't change it for anything.
Yeah, that's amazing, Russ. Well, I'm so grateful for your family, and I'll be praying for her and ask the audience. There's a lot of believers that tune into this show, and there's a big community of believers that I'm finding out there through this podcast. And we all need to lift each other up in prayer. But I'm going to pray right now for your family too, Lord. I just thank you for Russ, and I thank you for his wife and their children. I thank you for Dolly. And Father, I just ask that you would continue to just do amazing things through their life, and that her testimony would be a testimony of your goodness and your grace, and bring you glory in Jesus' name. Amen. So Russ, just to kind of, put a bow on this incredible podcast, tell me something that's a fun fact about you. I have an answer that I know that I'm hoping you'll tell, but it's okay. I know you like the outdoors, if I can give you a hint there. Maybe talk a little bit about that. You got some pretty cool stories on that front.
Yeah, I am a big outdoorsman. I like to bow hunt, and I've bow hunted all over the world. We do it as a family. My wife is also very into it, and well, I'm a bow hunter, but I'm a conservationist. And if you don't know what that means, a lot of people think hunters, and Hollywood portrays hunting in a very poor light. And it's not rooted in anything truthful. Hunters and sportsmen and women love the outdoors and nature, arguably more than anyone, and are willing to preserve and protect and promote the hunting, fishing, hiking, camping. That's conservationism. My son is named George Roosevelt Richardson. He's named after Teddy Roosevelt. He's the father of modern day conservation. We wouldn't have national parks. We wouldn't have game and fish organizations to manage the population of our fish and game. And we eat this week. We were laughing. Sunday night we had wild turkey nuggets that we harvested, the wild turkey ourselves as a family. We had green chili burritos on Monday night from a bear. So bear green chili burritos. And then last night we had elk burgers. And it's just like, this is like natural, raw, organic food that we know exactly where it came from. And it's funny because I often have people say, it's so weird that you do that. I'm like, is it? Is it weird that I know right where the meat that I put in my own mouth and my children's mouth, where it comes from? It's actually only weird in the United States for like the last 50 years. Even 50 years ago, people that lived in the city walked down to their local butcher and say, "Yo, Brian, give me some cutlets," So I got, is it that weird? Or is it just weird that now we're just giving ourselves meat that we have no idea which journey,
Right.
But, yeah, big bow hunter. I've hunted all over the world, and really like North America and Arizona specifically.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. And I love the trend. It looks like now in this new environment we're about to go into, this new golden age, as they say, of maybe we'll get healthy again and get some of the chemicals out of our meat here, and make everybody a little more healthy. So that would be fantastic.
It's true. I actually have, I've seen a shift where a lot of people that are not hunters are supportive of it. And they're supportive of it because they're supportive of organic foods and natural foods. And I think that the population, so there's an interesting fact. I'm big supporting a lot of different organizations that for conservation efforts. We have a problem in America where we have more hunters than ever in terms of actual numbers. But in terms of numbers as a percentage of the population, it's the lowest ever.
Hmm.
And so there's concern that, they'll lose a voice to certain organizational efforts that are trying to stifle hunting. And the truth is, you don't have to be a hunter to believe in science and the science of managing healthy populations of wildlife. There's a balance to it, and hunting is the way of which to measure that. Right. And it sounds counterintuitive, but it's literally go Google the North American model and you'll learn a ton about it.
Right. No, that's awesome. That's awesome. Now, thanks for spotlighting that. And just a couple more questions here is, how much time do you dedicate to unwinding per day? And then to tag onto that at the end is, because I have a feeling I know what your unwinding is. I don't want to answer for you, but I got a good hint here. And what is your why? Like at the core,
yeah.
What is your why that drives this?
So in order to unwind, you have to get wound up. So I try not to get too wound up, my friend.
Yeah.
I know what you mean though. Like I've always been, two things you can always ask anyone that's ever worked for me. Number one, I've never denied any vacation. I actually don't even know how to go into the system right now and do it, to be honest. Like you're good. I trust you, right? Yeah. Hopefully no one's listening to HR. You're not. The second thing though is I'm big on, I want you to take care of your mind, your body, your soul. And if those things are taken care of, take your, is it Bob Stoops? Was the coach of Oklahoma? Like, no, boys, men, take your kids to school. I don't want to see you in the office at 6. Wake up, have breakfast, take your kids to school. Those types of things are important. And so I think if you always stay centered, and I encourage people like, hey, you need to do yoga at noon in the middle of the week. I'm cool with that. Because if you are healthy spiritually, mentally, and physically, you're going to perform better in your job.
That's true.
And so I try not to get too wound up, but like when I travel a lot, that's when I go hardcore on working out. What am I going to do? Go sit in the bar all night? No, that leads to bad things, right? So I work out hard when I'm traveling. That's a good stress reliever. And then for me, it's truly leaving in 25 minutes to go pick up those other 3 kids. And that's my unwind, man. And my why is really 2 things. I found more of my why. Actually, I'm going to tell you, there's a gentleman, he's an SVP at Comcast. His name's Venkat. He's on the NRF video that you were talking about. National Retail Federation, if anyone doesn't know what that is. I told him about my situation because I was gone and we just finished this deployment. And he got back and he said, I heard about your challenges. And I was like, yeah. He goes, I'm secretly jealous. And I just looked at him. I go, what do you mean? He goes, my whole life I found purpose in everything I do. He said, but it's like this. I get to that purpose and then it's like, all right, now what? And he goes, Dolly is a purpose that you have forever. And he goes, and it's not like that with all kids, because like they leave, like your son, right? They're gonna leave you, and there's a good chance that Dolly be around for a long time with me. And he goes, like, that's your purpose. And so I now take the learnings from her. My purpose is to go tell the world about the things that I've learned about my faith in God and how she's changed my life. And then I'm very big on these 4 kids. I want to raise a dangerously good man and 3 dangerously good women that can have a very, very big impact on the world. I remember doing a photo for Christmas 3 years ago with my 16 grandkids and grandparents and all the great grandkids. And I remember telling my wife in bed that night, I'm like, babe, I want that photo. I want to be a gramps one day and have 25 little kids around and big grandkids and great grandkids. And I'm like, and that's why we need to have more kids, because we had only had 2 at the time. I'm like, because nowadays the average people stop at like 1, 2. I'm like, so if we want 8 or 9 grandkids, we need to have like 4 kids. So that's my purpose right there.
That's awesome, brother. Man, I'll tell you, Russ, God bless you, man, and your family. It's been an honor to have you on the podcast. I think that it's going to bring a lot of, it's going to touch a lot of people, man, at the core. And I think that there's going to be others out there that are going to resonate. I hope and encourage, again, go to Russ's page on LinkedIn in the business community. Check him out. let's follow Dolly's journey, and watch her grow into the amazing person that God has purposed her to be on this planet. And we're there to support you and cheer you on all the way, man. I appreciate you, brother, for coming on the show.
Appreciate you. I'll tell you something I appreciate about you. We all are guilty of this. You say, "Hey, I'll pray for you." No. Why don't you just stop wherever you're at? Pray for him right then. It's impactful. Someone did that for me one time when I was going through something tough in college, and I said, "Oh, will you pray for me? Just keep me in your prayers." And he's like, "Let's pray right now."
That's right.
And it was in a big public setting, and I'm like, "Man, the guts on this guy!" And like, he was unapologetic about his and his name's Steve McIrvin. I'll never forget it. So I appreciate you doing that. Thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure, brother. My pleasure. God bless you, man. And we'll talk to you soon, Russ.
Man, take care.
All right.